Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into it. Back in April 2022, we all watched this absolutely wild parliamentary showdown unfold. It ultimately led to the sudden ousting of Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan. It's an incredibly fascinating story full of ruthless political math, shifting allegiances, and a massive constitutional crisis. Let's unpack exactly how a leader who swept into power promising a brand new era suddenly found himself fighting for his political life. So, how exactly does a wildly popular leader just fall from power that fast? To really get it, we actually need to start at the climax of the story. Picture this. It's April 9th, 2022, right on the floor of the National Assembly. A historic announcement is being made that sends absolute shockwaves through the country. But as we'll see, the trap had been set long before this specific moment. 74 members have recorded a vote in favor of the resolution. Boom. Just like that, with those official words, Imran Khan was stripped of his power through a no-confidence vote. It was a completely devastating blow for a leader who so many people genuinely believed would finally break a long-standing and honestly kind of unbelievable historical curse in Pakistani politics. Which brings us to a very surprising statistic. 0. Yep, a big, fat 0. That's exactly how many Pakistani prime ministers have ever actually managed to complete a full 5-year term in office. Not a single one. When Imran Khan came in, the legendary cricket hero who led Pakistan to its only World Cup win back in '92, there was immense hope that he'd finally be the guy to break that 0. To figure out why he didn't, we have to look at how he got the job in the first place. Let's rewind to the 2018 general elections. You had the old guard, mainly the PMLN and the PPP, but they were just totally bogged down by these massive, multi-generational corruption scandals, with leaders facing hefty fines and even jail time. Then in sweeps Khan's party, the PTI, the Movement for Justice. They emerged as this fresh, insurgent hope, essentially promising a totally clean slate and an end to all that systemic nepotism. But here's the thing. It all comes down to ruthless parliamentary math. In Pakistan's National Assembly, there are 342 seats. Cut that in half and add 1, and you get the magic number, 172. If you don't have 172 seats backing you, well, you simply don't have a government. And this specific number? This was the crucial vulnerability that ended up being absolutely fatal for Imran Khan. See, even with a massive showing in 2018 where his party grabbed 155 seats, they were still short. They couldn't cross that 172 mark on their own. Khan literally had to scrape together 178 seats by teaming up with smaller, independent factions. That left him with a razor-thin, incredibly fragile margin of error. I'm talking just 6 seats. 6! Now, the opposition definitely smelled blood in the water. Recognizing his fragile hold on power, they pulled off this staggering maneuver, uniting into an unprecedented mega-coalition called the PDM. And honestly, this was wild. You had secular left-wingers linking arms with extreme right-wing religious conservatives and free-market capitalists. They essentially threw all their deep ideological differences right out the window for one single goal: topple Khan. And they didn't just quietly sit in parliament, right? They took the fight straight to the streets. About a year and a half before the final showdown, they started throwing these massive joint rallies. They tapped directly into some brutal economic pain that pretty much anyone can relate to: skyrocketing inflation, soaring unemployment, starving farmers, crippling power cuts. They managed to successfully frame Khan's government as the root cause of the public's daily suffering. The very first real tremor hit this fragile setup in March 2021. In a massive shocker, Khan's own finance minister lost a critical Senate seat to a PDM candidate. The opposition immediately went on the attack, demanding Khan step down. But Khan? He doubles down. In a super bold countermove, he calls a voluntary vote of confidence right then and there to prove he still has those 178 votes. He survived it, but man, it proved his coalition was barely hanging on. Flash forward exactly 1 year to March 2022, and things just completely go off the rails. It's like a frantic line of dominoes falling. March 8th, the opposition officially demands the no-confidence vote. 2 days later, police are literally raiding parliament lodges, dramatically dragging politicians away. By March 18th, Khan's own party members are in open revolt, and a few days after that, his coalition partners are threatening to bail. The really fatal internal crack, that happened when his own people turned on him. Around 24 of Khan's own PTI party members actually holed up in Islamabad's Sindh house. A rebel member went public, complaining about ignored constituencies, steep inflation, and minority rights abuses. Khan's hardcore loyalists were so incredibly angry about this that they literally climbed the walls of Sindh House to protest the rebels. Desperate to stop the bleeding, Khan's camp slapped these rebels with show cause notices using Article 63A of the Constitution. Basically, that's a clause designed to strictly block politicians from just easily jumping ship. But remember that brutal math we talked about? Even if he successfully and legally disqualified every single one of those defectors under this rule, his total seat count would still plummet way below that magic 172 mark. The absolute mathematical nail in the coffin hit in late March. 3 key coalition partners, who collectively held 17 absolutely vital seats, officially jumped ship. Khan practically begged them to stay, offering top-tier government posts, but no dice. They signed deals with the opposition, and just like that, in one swift move, Khan's tiny 6-seat safety net completely vanished into thin air. Staring down certain defeat, Khan dramatically shifts his narrative. He comes out with this explosive claim that the United States was actually orchestrating his downfall, supposedly teaming up with the local opposition to punish him for a diplomatic trip to Russia. Now, it's worth noting here that both the U.S. State Department and the Pakistani opposition completely flat-out denied this, calling it a fabricated excuse for a collapsing government, and the claims remain totally unsubstantiated. Things then escalate from a political drama into a full-on constitutional crisis. April 3rd arrives, the day of the big vote. The deputy speaker, who is fiercely loyal to Khan, basically says nope and blocks the vote entirely, citing this alleged foreign interference. Immediately, the president dissolves the assembly on Khan's advice to trigger fresh elections. Honestly, it looked like a brilliant checkmate. But wait, Pakistan's Supreme Court steps in, unanimously rules the whole maneuver unconstitutional, and orders the vote to proceed anyway. So back to April 9th, the Supreme Court forces the process to resume, and the math finally catches up with Imran Khan. The united opposition tallies up exactly 174 votes. That officially crosses the 172-vote threshold, making Imran Khan the very first prime minister in Pakistan's history to get booted out by a no-confidence vote. Obviously, this was a devastating personal and political blow for Khan. But here's a super interesting takeaway a lot of political analysts point to. This whole sequence of events actually marks a remarkably positive milestone for Pakistan's democracy. Think about it. The Supreme Court acted totally independently, the historically super powerful military stayed strictly neutral, and a prime minister was removed entirely by the book through exact constitutional law rather than a military coup. Which brings us to the big what now? With Pakistan's next general elections rapidly approaching, analysts love to bring up former Indian Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Once upon a time, he lost a confidence vote by a single seat, gracefully stepped down, and then roared back to win the next election with a huge majority. So, I'll leave you with this provocative thought. Will Imran Khan follow that democratic precedent, respect the harsh math, and let the voters decide his fate? Or is he going to continue to resist the system from the outside?